YGO Strat's single card discussion's gonna be talking about some of the cards that have impacted Yu-Gi-Oh! Throughout the years. Today's card, the first part and the longest link combo you've ever had to sit through, Isolde, Two Tales of Noble Knights. Isolde was first released in the TCG in Extreme Force in February of 2018, with its first and only reprint as of this video being in the Soul Fusion Special Edition box in 2018. Also as of this video, it has spent no time on the ban list, to the complaint of plenty of Redditors, I'm sure. A Link 2 light attribute warrior monster with 1600 attack and arrows pointing bottom left and bottom right, it requires any two warrior monsters to summon, and its effect reads: if this card is link summoned, you can add one warrior monster from your deck to your hand, but for the rest of this turn, you cannot normal summon, set, or special summon monsters with that name, nor activate their monster effects. You can send any number of equipped spells with different names from your deck to the graveyard, special summon one warrior monster from your deck whose level equals the number of cards sent to the graveyard. You can only use each effect of Isolde, Two Tales of the Noble Knights once per turn. Isolde is in the second class of link support that came out in the early days of Master Rule 4. The first class of link support was cards like Shaddoll Construct or Gladiator Beast Dragaziz. Not the worst card effects, but nothing special. And the second class of link support was cards like Halqifibrax, Electromite, and Isolde. But where Halq supported synchro decks, or more accurately link spam, or Electromite supported pendulum decks, Isolde supported warriors. And if you're unfamiliar with Yu-Gi-Oh, that might not seem like anything special, but warrior is one of the strongest types in the game, with the only other type really comparable to it being dragons. Just like how Dragon Link was a good stuff deck abusing the generic support, Isolde would quickly become a staple in warrior decks, with Goki being a top contender in the 2018 meta and Dark Warrior in the 2019 meta. Isolde was a borderline staple in those 2 years. Goki would use it as an actually good Link 2 monster, something the deck lacked on its release, and coupled with Firewall Dragon's pre-errata text making for infinite summons from the hand every turn, and the fact that Gokis all searched more Gokis when they hit the grave, it made for an easy and reliable way to set up full extra link locks going first, which in Master Rule 4 was all but a death sentence. Early hero decks would sometimes use Isolde in their builds as well, offering players easier access to their hero starters at the cost of main decking a few equip spells. Isolde was an arguable staple of the deck for a brief period before Hero's 68th wave of support came out with cards like Cross Crusader that forced players to choose between heroes specifically or generic warriors like Isolde. But while heroes would gladly give up Isolde to make a board of Dark Law and Zero Negates, other players opted instead to go hard on the warrior package. Dark Warrior and or Rongo Turbo, depending on how you separate the decks, or as it might be better to refer to as just good stuff deck piles of the best warrior cards available at the time, from Armageddon Knight and Destiny Hero Malicious to Neospatian Connector and a small Phantom Knight engine, all as means for extenders and starters to link spam not just potential U-links like Goki had in 2018, but whose main goal was to summon either number 86 heroic champion Rongo Miniad or Topologic Gumblar Dragon, a link 4 that could easily rip 4 cards out of the opponent's hand all by itself. And thanks to Neospatian Connector being a reliable way to get to Gumblar, and Connector summoning Aqua Dolphin for not only an easy Isolde off your normal, but also a way to peek at the opponent's hand and get rid of hand traps with Dolphin's effect, it was an annoying deck. It meant that the deck did one of two things: stopped you from playing by not allowing you to summon anything with Rongo, or stopped you from playing by ripping your hand apart before you got to your main phase 1. Really, just a fantastic deck in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. In one of the funniest turn of events, Isolde helped this deck not just in the form of free summons from the deck as link climbing, but also in the equips it forced you to play. The worst part of playing Isolde is that the effect to summon from the deck means you have to play some number of garnets in the form of the equip spells. They need to be sent from the deck, so they're cards you never ever want to draw, and you need to play as many quips as the monster you want to summon has levels. So even just a level 4 monster means you're running 4 garnets. And when it comes to equip spells, your choices are very limited. Equip spells are definitely in the running for the worst card type in the entirety of the game, kept from the title only by the likes of Gemini or Union monsters that aren't A, B, or C. The best ones in the game are banned, so no Snatch Steal or Premature Burial, so players are forced to find the 4 best equipped spells in the game that wouldn't be unusable when drawn. Popular equips in an Isolde package include Living Fossil, a somewhat restricted monster reborn, Different Dimension Reincarnation, a reborn from the Banish pile, Overdone Burial, which is a slightly differently restricted monster reborn, or Axe of Fools, a card that negated the effects of whatever it equipped to. But the star of the show ended up being one that was useless in terms of its on-field effect, but very powerful as a means for the nearly limitless hand advantage it provided. Divine Sword Phoenix Blade is a very old and to this day very solid equip spell. It only gives a 300 attack buff when equipped, but that's not important because the reason you're playing it is that when it's in the grave you can banish 2 warriors to add itself from grave to hand. That isn't once per turn, so not only could this set up the banish pile for DDR, but also it meant that you could always have discard fodder for any of your card effects. Comboed with nightmare monsters like Goblin, you essentially got a free extra normal summon, and most importantly, you always had an extra card in hand to trigger off Gumblar's affected discard. And with the amount of link climbing, it was never a problem to get material in the grave for this effect. As of this video, Isolde fell out of the meta as Toss format came into play, and even after the 4 pillars of that format fell, newer and better toys have come out that were better and more reliable than Warrior.deck, which itself was weakened with not only the banning of Rongo and Gumblar, but also Destrudo, Glow Up Bulb, Jet Synchron, and Blackwing Steam the Cloak, as well as limits on Armageddon Knight and Greffer, and semi-limiting Destiny Hero Malicious. Dude, this deck got slaughtered, holy shit. Still, at this point in time, I feel safe saying Isolde is a card that the community at large knows is broken. There's just nothing abusing it, so nobody's really complaining about it right now, which is fair. In a format of adventure tokens, scythe locks, DPE, and a minimum of 12 hand traps per main deck, it feels silly to complain about a generic Link 2 that summons a monster from the deck, because we're already complaining about a generic Link 2 that summons a monster from the deck, and a different one that summons from the extra deck. Still, plenty of decks play Isolde. Goki, while a much worse deck now than with its Firewall pre-errata, can still easily abuse it the same way it did in 2018, only needing to play the 1 Phoenix Blade to get a Goki for Link spam. 6 Sam can use it to get out their tuner for various plays, and in for Noble Knight, the card's actual home deck can make very easy use of it with equips in archetype that are great to send or open regardless, like Durendal. Overall, Isolde is a powerful Link monster, one to help plenty of decks in the meta to date, and one sure to help plenty more in the future. And when it inevitably helps out the right deck at the right time, I'm sure this will be a card no one will be surprised to see on the ban list. And so that's our look at single card discussions, Isolde, 2 Tales of the Noble Knights. Stay tuned for our next video, and feel free to suggest some cards to review or what type of video you'd like to see. Don't forget to like, and as always, subscribe to YGO Strats, so you too can become a true duelist.